Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm living it. I'm living the dream. I can hear myself. That's good. Okay, I can hear myself. Uh oh my gosh. I have no idea what to even do this morning. It's just I looked around, I was like, okay, I went to bed at a good time. I was absolutely munted. And there's just so much going on. I was like, oh, um, what should I like do like a react video? Should I do something else? I can't see it anymore. Where did it go? I just saw it. There's a thing on my screen that just killed me. Uh, if I go to my subscriptions, will it be there? Because sometimes I just subscribe to people because I'm like, oh, one day they're gonna put out something just too amazing. Here it is, I found it. YouTuber Blue Orange 22. Oh man. Let me copy that. Let me open it in Microsoft Edge or no, not Microsoft Edge. That'd be a bad idea actually. Let me open it in a private window. Paste and go. Studio mode. This one, right? Yeah, that one. Let me go. Yeah, and so I want to just be clear. I'm actually all for like the manosphere stuff and everything, but it's just there's just a point where it just gets ridiculous like this. Men's rights activist reaction to Donald Trump guilty verdict. What is the MRA take on it? Followed immediately, just 9 days ago, followed immediately by alcohol almost killed me. And then 8 hours ago is alcohol issue, some men's rights issue. Just the stories I see baffle me. I'm just like, no, it's not like a men's rights issue. It's a public health issue. It's like, okay, it's not like anything crazy. I just don't get it. I just don't get people. But you can even see like on all those thumbnails, just like if you go back on his channel, you could just see like it looks like his face is melting in a long time lapse. And it's so insane. I feel bad for him, but I don't know. There's just some things where the the way your brain works, you have to get it under control for yourself because at the end of the day, it's your brain. It's a very difficult thing. Um, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do today. I just thought that was interesting because I saw it. It was like, I don't know. I'm baffled. I'm baffled by things. Let's see. So, uh, maybe we do like some Kusoge. I have an hour and 10 minutes. I have a clock. I have a physical clock that is set 10 minutes fast. And then I can set my alarm clock on my computer to be 10 minutes fast. And I have like an hour and 10 minutes. We can have like a exact cutoff. Excuse me. We'll have like an exact cutoff point. I can go over like 5 minutes. And that works out for me. I should have started the stream earlier, to be honest. But if I had started the stream earlier, I would not have found the video. Is alcoholism a men's rights issue? Just, I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's public health issue. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It's a public health issue. Sort of like the obesity epidemic, sort of like COVID-19 was, you know. It's a public health issue, not a specific demographic issue. Though maybe certain demographics are more impacted by it. My feeling is that if it's this is a good one for me. If I see an issue that affects all groups of humans, my immediate thought when someone tries to recontextualize it as a subgroup specific issue, my immediate thought is it's not. It affects everyone in some way. And trying to hoard all the resources for your specific subcategory is a bad thing. That's where my mind goes. That's where my mind goes. I'm just still looking at my list of games. Arsim did mention Kusoge during the Saturday stream of 999, and I don't have enough time to do a 999 stream. Like, I guess truly the part where I'm at, it would not take that long, but then I'd be hooked. So we gotta find a game, or we gotta find a video that won't be a problem for me if I react to it. There was a video I wanted to react to. I guess I could show that off. What was the guy's name? It was Caleb Finn. Yeah, Caleb Finn. He has a video called Absolute Despair in Video Games. And if you remember the stream I did recently going over the TF2 videos, you'll know that I mentioned, like, hey, you shouldn't do certain things a certain way. Well, this is the exact kind of thing I was talking about. This is a Caleb Finn video. Let me swap it over to make it the current thing. And there we go. Turning off studio mode. I have it visible right here. Okay, so the guy in that first video, I don't even remember what it was called anymore. It was like fix TF2 isn't enough, or blah blah blah. He sped up people that he was responding to, and it was like he had already watched the video over and over again, and he was speeding up their points as they were making them and everything. This is what I was talking about. I want you to look at all of this stuff that you can see down here. You have Mother 3, you have Earthbound. It's like, oh, there's Steins Gate. There's I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream. Then there's the guy. Then there's Steins Gate. Look at all that. This is stuff I know about. Ooh, Harvester. Ooh, you got Harvester right there. Ooh. Oh, did you know? Did you know that Steve from Harvester was like arrested for being a nonce? Yeah, yeah. I have no mouth and I must scream. Yeah. So all of this, I don't know what this game is, but all of this, and then the Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley, all of this implies to me that this video is perfect for speeding up because I'm almost certain that it's just going to be things I've heard because I want to see 16 hours ago. I'm a small channel, and usually when I react to stuff, I'm very good at it. So I'm very good at adding my own commentary. So let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. See if I can finish this at 2x speed in an hour and 10 minutes because I'm curious. I think I looked it up just to be sure. Caleb is roughly my age, so it's not anything major. Let's just go into this one. Oh my gosh, disturbing content. Shoot. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Did you see that? That was the PlayStation 2 like spinner that you would get if the game wasn't being read. I'm disturbed. I'm disturbed already. I mean, look at that. They got it all distorted and everything. Very disturbing. Very disturbing. Look, look. They have artificial artifacting. Disturbed already. Oh, it's moving faster because I have it at 2x speed. So let's be fair. Let's see what it was actually doing. Oh, they slowed it. No, that's the actual speed it's supposed to go. Yeah, so we'll go back to speeding it back up. I'm already disturbed. I'm already rumbled. My chimneys are already rustled. Classic. Have you heard of the video essayist Lord and Savior? Have you heard of the video essayist Lord and Savior? I have a feeling. Um. Does he acknowledge which song he used? Sources. Yes, I was right. I was right. Uh I think so. I think I'm right. If I open up a new tab. I was wrong, actually. I was wrong. I've been proven wrong. But I heard that music and I was immediately like, "Oh my gosh. We have another have another everywhere at the end of time," but I was wrong. Let me search the paste bin though. I might still find it. All right. I was wrong. I'm actually disappointed. I'm actually disappointed in myself. But yeah, I heard what was playing, and I was immediately like, "Oh my gosh, that's everywhere at the end of time." Just immediately. But if I had to guess, the reason I thought that is because it seems like this night worker person um is heavily inspired by it. He only started uploading videos to YouTube a few months ago. 5 months ago. So I'm actually surprised that it's not the Lord and Savior of video essays.
As the player at the end of the tunnel, that plunge us into the depths of absolute despair, when despite our best efforts, everything seems to unravel. As the player, you're driven by the belief that amidst the ruins and heartache, there lies a path to redemption somewhere up ahead. You continue on, and the light at the end of the tunnel fades into an overwhelming darkness. It's in these moments, when the screen blurs and the controller feels heavy.
That was an overwhelming darkness. There was a fade to white. There's gotta be plenty of games that fade into darkness you could use.
In your hands, that the true weight of the narrative hits you. There's an ache in your chest as you witness the devastation, a sinking feeling that mirrors the
That ache in your chest is just the caffeine.
character's own despair. The screen becomes a mirror, reflecting your own vulnerability and fears, as if the game's sorrow seeps through the pixels and into your heart, making you feel the weight of every loss and every failure. But there's no other choice than to press on. It's up to you to save the world. Without you, the world will remain in chaos. You can leave the game and come back later, but it'll be in the back of your mind. They all need you. It's that pull that brings us back. You get attached to the characters and their conflicts. You begin to care for their world, and you're the only one that can fix it.
Oh man, it's like a video game. I'll slow it down just a little bit. Just, oh yes. I love video essays like this. And the thing that I love is it's like a modern video essay, classic modern video essay, but it's going to be covering stuff that I know this guy heard about it long ago because of just the way things are. Like, I could see him referencing the Sonic CD screen where it's like the cursed image of Sonic with like the mustache and everything that plays like this creepy music. Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
One of my favorite examples of absolute despair lies in the story of Mother 3. The Nowhere Islands are occupied by the Pigmask Army, who have modernized the town with new age technology, transforming the natural landscape into a developed city. Lucas and his twin brother, Klaus, are swept up in the conflict as the Pigmask Army attack their village and Klaus goes missing. Lucas learns of the army's objective to find a dragon with the power to reshape the world, lying beneath the island, and the first one to pull all 7 needles will ultimately control it. Lucas's objective is clear: pull the needles before the enemy does. And at the location of the final needle, Lucas fights the final boss, revealed to be his brainwashed twin brother, Klaus, who then takes off his helmet and remembers who he was. He can't bear to live with the knowledge of his wrongdoings, firing a bolt of lightning and purposefully reflecting it off Lucas's special pin, directly back at him, ending his own life. Lucas pulls the final pin and unleashes the dragon, ultimately destroying the world and reverting the modernization of the Nowhere Islands. It's a necessary evil to stop the bigger evil. The world is better off being destroyed and one day rebuilt than letting the Pigmask Army have control over that same ultimate power. Now you're probably...
I don't know about that one. I think, you know, I think they're just a bunch of hippies. They were like, all this technology, the world was better without it. They're anarcho-primitivists. You know, anarcho-primitivists going out into the woods, wondering what that blurry shape rapidly approaching them is. They aren't wearing their glasses because the glasses are not primitive.
Thinking, yeah, it's an ambiguous ending, but ultimately, it can be interpreted as good triumphing over evil at a cost. But my favorite part is the outcome of Porky. In Mother 2, Porky is the main character's next door neighbor, a snot-nosed,
Oh no, we've gone back in time.
cowardly, but ultimately tragic child that is the way he is due to the neglect of his parents and the unending abuse from bullies. Porky eventually betrays the hero and joins Gygus, an alien known as the embodiment of evil. During the final battle, just as he is about to be defeated, Porky time travels to a different era and rises to power as the leader of the Pig Mask Army, which is where we find him in Mother 3. It was Porky who wished to control the dragon beneath the island, and due to the effects of time travel, has become immortal and unkillable, meaning that once he awakens the dragon, it'll be only him and the dragon left alive, killing anyone that doesn't like him. Lucas and the gang tirelessly attack, until eventually Porky's machine runs out of power. In a desperate move to escape, Porky calls down an absolutely safe capsule, a machine he'd forced Dr. Endernuts to create, and seals himself inside. No matter how much damage they inflict on the machine, it doesn't take any damage. Porky is absolutely safe inside. But it turns out that Dr. Endernuts had built in a safeguard, explaining that once the door is shut, it can never be reopened, and Porky will be absolutely safe inside forever. An unkillable and immortal being was now doomed to spend eternity trapped inside the capsule, with no way of ever getting out. And it's when you really think about it, that it becomes a fate worse than death. For a capsule to be entirely safe, it'd have to be closed off from the air outside, meaning that once you've breathed all the air, you'd be left gasping for eternity. There's no food, no water, no room to move around. Even death is no longer a way out. All that's left to do is to wait in despair for the end.
Oh wow.
That will never come.
I don't know. I don't know if that's despair. I don't know. That just seems like purgatory.
Welcome back, everybody. Together, you and I are going to have a look at some of the most darkest and despair-inducing moments in video games. Moments that go out of their way to permanently scar your psyche and leave you lingering on the experience for weeks. I'm going to try my best to show you moments that you haven't seen before. There's the classics like the existential dread of Soma or the heartbreak of Silent Hill 2.
Moments we haven't seen before. First one, Steins Gate. I guess Steins Gate might be niche.
But we won't be talking about those today. Instead, I'm going to show you some moments that aren't as well known or widely talked about as others. So take a second to settle in, grab a snack, and get comfy. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's start with one of my personal favorites. Steins Gate, a science fiction visual novel and one of my favorite stories in video games. Steins Gate is pretty popular for its incredible anime adaptation, but a lot of people can be quite put off by the length and complexity of the original visual novel. 95% of the game is spent pressing one button for around 50 hours as you read.
Oh really? Just pressing one button. Oh wow. Ever played a visual novel? Ever played a visual novel? Never played a visual novel. Oh my gosh. Calling it one button gameplay. That's not the point. That's not the point of a visual novel. The point is you're reading it. What? You don't want to read? That's it's literally called a novel. It's literally called a novel. It's not about pressing the button, it's about reading.
Pages and pages of text, with the other 5% spent sending text messages to your friends. You follow the protagonist, Okabe, as
That's still reading.
he commits various experiments in a makeshift laboratory inside his apartment. Alongside his best friends, Mayuri and Daru, Okabe accidentally discovers actual time travel using a cell phone and a microwave, gaining the ability to send text messages back in time in order to change the present. Amid their experimentation, the group is discovered by CERN, based on the real organization, CERN, the largest particle physics laboratory in the world. Members of CERN discover Okabe's location and storm the apartment, killing Mayuri in the process. The game is then spent constantly going back in time, learning more about CERN as well as futilely trying to prevent Mayuri's death, which happens again and again and again. It's a complex and heartbreaking love story, and like any good visual novel, there are multiple endings to play through. 6 individual endings.
Man, that's not even an accurate flow chart of the game. Why isn't this flow chart accurate? Steins Gate is the easiest one to make a flow chart for. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't remember the exact order. How did you get this wrong? How did you get it wrong? I'm so confused. Paint 3D. New. Let's full screen it. Let's zoom in. Alright, we're gonna do, we'll do a red line on a black background like this one. Fill black. Red line. 2D shape. Here is a line. Here. Let me make the chart. Oh, no one can see it. No one can see it. And I don't have time to try now at this point, but it's just a straight line. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is like the Elite Edition where something's been changed. But also this is still not accurate because it's not even that complicated. Because at each of these points, it immediately takes you back to where this main line is. So it's not even that complicated.
Each with their own outcome, but it's in one of these alternate endings where the topic of today's video lies, known as the Suzuha route. Paralyzed with the decision to choose either the timeline where Mayuri dies or Makise dies, Okabe decides to instead run from the problem and leap 48 hours into the past, choosing to infinitely repeat the previous 2 days where all of his friends were alive. On his first loop, Okabe, Daru, Mayuri, Makise, and Suzuha together ride their bikes along the road on a sunny laid-back day. Daru leans on the guardrail to rest and is nearly hit by a truck, just as Okabe manages to warn him just in time. Daru, Mayuri, and Makise decide to visit a restaurant, and Okabe returns to the beginning of the first 2
Why is there fucking Danganronpa music playing right now? What the hell?
days. The friends are once again riding their bikes on a sunny, carefree day, but Okabe's tone is different. It's clear that this isn't Okabe's second loop. Daru leans on the guardrail, and Okabe opens his mouth to warn him once again, but stops himself as the dark thoughts grow curious of the outcome if he chose not to intervene. He wonders if his friends would scream, and how far Daru's limbs would fly. With the stakes gone, and the ability to rewind any action or consequence, Okabe begins to view his friends less as people, and more narrowly missing Daru's head as he collapses onto the ground. While Okabe realizes that in a closed loop he'd created to keep his friends alive, he was ready to watch them die. Once again, Daru, Mayuri, and Makise decide to visit a restaurant, leaving Okabe and Suzuha to have a friendly conversation. But the dark thoughts begin to surface again, and Okabe finds himself staring at Suzuha's body. Now keep in mind that only Okabe is aware of Suzuha's secret, that she is a time traveler from the future, and also Daru's future daughter for his own selfish desires, with no citizenship and no passport in this time period.
Man, that's like he's dumping everything all right here. That's way too much like exposition dumping. Oh man.
Not even the police would be convinced to help. He tries to rationalize his dark thoughts, and eventually gives in. It's a disturbing turn that comes completely from left field. The further you progress through the story, the dark...
Oh man. If he hadn't done all of the artifacting, I wouldn't have been anywhere near as disturbed.
Okabe's journey becomes, but the bad ending of the Suzuha route ramps up the hopelessness to a completely different level. And just to put everyone at ease, Okabe doesn't commit to his dark impulses. He realizes at the last second that the loop has taken its toll and runs away. But for that brief encounter with Suzuha, Okabe had felt true despair.
True despair. Oh my gosh. Where?
Harvester, a game designed to make you feel uncomfortable, infamous for its use of excessive...
True despair, next game. Okay. That's why I love video essays. You have to be on the right wavelength to understand a video essay. You have to have a high IQ.
Violence. The point-and-click game was created as an examination towards the sentiment that video games can create serial killers. A frequent narrative in the late 90s and early 2000s. Harvester's goal was to create a disturbing and unpleasant experience that could prove that playing a game with gratuitous murder and brutality wouldn't impact a person's psyche in the real world. But little did they know that 10 years later, the actor behind the protagonist would go on to commit and be charged.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The game had a message, but the actor that was in the game did a crime. Disproved.
With heinous crimes. We follow the main character, Steve Mason, as he wakes up in the 1950s town of Harvest.
What crimes?
But isn't able to remember how he got there. The game centers around trying to relieve Steve's amnesia by exploring the town and speaking to its unusual residents. They don't understand Steve's confusion, and all respond with the same line.
You always were a kidder, Steve.
As Steve solves puzzles and learns more about the town of Harvest, it seems that everything points towards the Lodge, a building that supposedly contains all of the information that Steve is looking for, including his identity. Amongst the disorientation, Steve also discovers that he's getting married to his fiancée, Stephanie Potsdam, a 17-year-old girl also suffering from amnesia, who is barred from leaving her room until her wedding to Steve in 2 weeks' time. They agree that something is going on in the town of Harvest, and that it couldn't possibly be a coincidence that they both happen to have amnesia. Steve then searches the town for details in order to enter the Lodge, and finds that it's invitation only, and the only way to receive one is to carry out a list of pranks given by the Sergeant-at-Arms, who is played by none other than Kevin Obregon, who some of you might know as the creator of The Rolling Giant. The pranks start as misdemeanors, keying the Johnson's car and such, before escalating to full-blown arson as you're tasked to burn down Edna's diner. Steve then receives his invitation and enters the Lodge, finding a surreal and hellish slaughterhouse on the other side. You make your way through the floors of one...
So you're gonna make a video about true despair in video games, and you're not even gonna bring up... You're not even gonna bring up what happened. Are you? Are you gonna bring it up? Just... Oh yeah, by the way, when you commit the arson... man, there's so many things that happen in Harvester. By the way, your fiance's father is caught digging a grave at one point. Turns out he buried the daughter alive of the owner of the restaurant that you later burned down. And the mother of that child who owns the restaurant, she kills herself and her daughter after you commit arson on the restaurant. But that's not what we were going to talk about in this video called Absolute Despair in Video Games. No.
Monsters and various puzzles, until finally you ascend to the final floor, where the Sergeant-in-Arms is waiting for you, revealing a kidnapped Stephanie that had been tortured with every level of the Lodge you had traversed. The Sergeant reveals that the town of Harvest is in fact a simulation, built with the sole purpose of slowly turning ordinary people into serial killers through its various acts that have been committed within. Steve is then presented with a choice to either marry Stephanie and live the rest of his life within the town of Harvest, or kill Stephanie and return to the real world as a serial killer. A perceived good and bad ending, yet both manage to lean down the same similar path of despair. In the bad ending, Steve uses his tool to brutally rip out Stephanie's skull and spinal cord, killing her instantly.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat.
He then returns to the real world and pretends to be a hitchhiker to an unsuspecting woman, brandishing a knife and stabbing her to death. Once he returns home, Steve's mother chastises him for playing video games as he laughs about his recent actions, revealing that not only did he murder the woman, but also eat her. In the good ending, which you'd expect would have a more lighthearted outcome, Steve tells the sergeant that he'd rather die than become a serial killer. Steve and Stephanie are then immediately married. They buy a house and fawn over their newborn baby, eventually dying of old age and buried side by side in the Harvester Cemetery. And over the countless years they spent together, it's then revealed that in the real world, only 5 minutes had passed. It's a game that services a particular vibe like no other, with its sole purpose entailing to create a game as violent as possible, to fly in the face of the political hysteria surrounding the impact of video games. It doesn't feel right to enjoy. Harvester takes pleasure in placing you in scenarios created.
It doesn't feel right to enjoy this game. It's just so disturbing.
To make you feel uncomfortable, and at the very end of the journey, you die a villain or live long enough to become a serial killer. But for the
Batman
actor behind the character of Steve, his story doesn't end here. Steve Mason, otherwise known as Kurt Steven Kissler, was arrested 10 years later in 2016, earning himself a lifetime placement on the Texas Public Sex Offenders Registry. Steve had accumulated 3 counts of possession of explicit photos of minors, bringing a new meaning to the phrase uttered to Steve by all of the residents in Harvester. You were always a kidder, Steve.
Oh my gosh. That's so dumb. You were always a kid. Jesus. They want to talk about like absolute despair video games. This isn't even in the game. Like yeah, absolute despair in video games. A mom killing herself and her daughter because their business was burned down by a crazy guy. Versus, oh yeah, this one actor from the game was a nonce. Okay, they're both bad, but we're talking about despair in video games, and you could have easily included both. This segment is, 5 minutes long. Like exactly 5 minutes and 10 seconds, we'll say. Let's say 5 minutes and change. Didn't even include like the haunting, I hope you understand, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do message that the mom leaves for everyone. It's awful.
I've no doubt that you've heard the sentiment over your lives that robots will one day rise up against humans and destroy civilization. It evokes a chilling dystopia in which artificial intelligence, arguably mankind's greatest achievement, becomes its largest adversary. And no other piece of media perfectly encapsulates this fear other than the world of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. A short story written by Harlan Ellison and later adapted into a point-and-click adventure game, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream takes place in an alternate future where the Cold War had escalated into World War III, fought by the 3 main superpowers: China, the Soviet Union, and the United States of America. Each nation created their own supercomputer AI, tasked with overseeing their stake in the battle, handling problems too complex for the human mind to understand. The American AI, known as the Allied Master Computer, eventually gained sentience and absorbed their Russian and Chinese counterparts, redefining itself simply as AM. With the wealth of information and understanding of the entire human race available in an instant, AM instantly develops a deep and burning hatred for mankind, and in turn, annihilates the entire human civilization on Earth, leaving but 5 humans alive in a layer beneath the Earth's surface. 100.
Man, this is a point where you could talk about like how disturbing the book is. All of these like very awful implications the book has about their lives in the Allied Master Computer. It's pretty gnarly. And then the game has its own unique tales to tell.
9 years have passed since the extermination of all human life, and thanks to the research previously undertaken by one of the characters, Am is able to endlessly extend the lifespan of the survivors for his own sadistic enjoyment, torturing and abusing them every waking moment for the creation of Am itself. Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate
you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. 1 billionth
of higher than the last, and it is here that the story of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream begins, as Am has prepared a new game for them, and if they were to win, he would let them die and end their suffering. Each character is then sent into a virtual world based on their trauma from before it was destroyed. The first is Gorister, a truck driver who stood up for what he believed in, reduced to a passive onlooker who was given up hope of ever beating Am, and now
there is no first and there is no particular last. You can do it in any order.
Waits for death. His wife had been committed to a mental asylum, something that Gorister had blamed himself for. He had agreed to play Am's game on the terms that a way to finally end it all would be promised if he'd reached the end, and so he finds himself on a Zeppelin, where he has a chance to learn more about the circumstances surrounding his wife's committal, and learns that it wasn't his fault. Gorister reconciles with his past grievances and learns to forgive himself and put an end to his self-loathing. But Am became frustrated with the outcome, hoping that Gorister would sink to a new level of despair, and instead places him in an electric cage once he returns to the real world. The next survivor is Ellen, a divorced woman following a devastating miscarriage who finds herself in a recreation of the day that she was trapped in a broken elevator with a maintenance man dressed in a yellow jumpsuit. For the following 3 hours, Ellen was... The event sparked a debilitating claustrophobia, as well as
I had to censor the word because it was too disturbing. Woo!
an intense fear of the color yellow, both which serve as the highlights of the interior featured in the pyramid of junk that Ellen must traverse. Inside promises...
Oh my gosh. Can I just say, the fact that SA has become the term that people use for this stuff is very bad to me. It's not as bad as some of the stuff I've seen, though. There was like a thing where these like Generation Alpha types, you know, I'm a Gen Zer. All right, you have people that are younger than me, they're Generation Alpha now. Yeah, so they have like code words for these things. And this woman who's like a millennial was reading comments and responded to a comment left by someone on like a TikTok or a YouTube short or something, and the comment was like, either the comment or the video was, someone gave me mascara, blah 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 blah, and this millennial woman was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But she didn't know. The average person would not have known the code words. And then you have this like millennial, Caleb's a millennial technically. This millennial thing, this internet brain rot thing where the word gets censored because, oh no, I couldn't sacrifice my monetization to talk about disturbing topics. And so they use SA as a replacement for something horrible, you know. And I don't know. So one, there's a difference, legally speaking, between what they're talking about and what happens to Ellen. Two different things, legally speaking. It's not there's a legal difference because one is more severe than the other. And then also just the fact that it's SA has led to a bad pun you could make. That's relevant to what's going on right now. Oops, I muted myself.
Of information and technology strong enough to disable Am, but to reach them, Ellen must first confront her trauma at the hands of the man in the yellow jumpsuit. Am expects Ellen to fall to a blubbering mess once again, but this time she chooses to fight back, and in turn discovers the vital technology. And just as she begins to activate the Chaos Trebler, Am pulls her out of the simulation and places her in a yellow box that continually lingers on shuddering, sealing her inside. Benny, a once handsome man, has been transformed by Am into a monkey-like creature. Before the war, Benny was a military commander known for his violent tendencies.
Does he mention the deleted scene? If he doesn't mention the deleted scene, then we just know. We know.
Murdering several soldiers due to their weak abilities and inferiority. Am had constantly toyed with Benny's physical abilities, as well as rendering his mouth permanently in a state of pain. Benny enters his virtual world on the promise of something to eat, stumbling across a nearby tribe that frequently engages in sacrificial offerings to Am through a lottery draw. Benny, over the course of his journey, can choose to face his past and atone for his actions, asking forgiveness from the soldiers he murdered and give the fruit to a starving family instead, culminating in an act of compassion as Benny chooses to take a child's place in the sacrificial ceremony. Benny is then vaporized before finding himself again in the real world, in a cage fit for an animal.
Did not mention the deleted scene. Did not mention the deleted scene. There's a deleted scene in I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream where Benny eats an infant. Absolute despair in video games, but you're not going to mention that. You're not going to mention the murder suicide in Harvester. You're not going to mention the deleted scene in I Have No Mouth and I'm a Stream. Oh, for shame. For shame.
Nimdok is next, a former physician whose research provided Am with both the ability to prolong...
You censored the word Nazi. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Why? Oh my gosh. I don't understand. I don't have this. I don't have this brainwave. I don't know. I don't get it. This is breaking my head.
Along the lifespan of humans, as well as the various methods of torture that Am had been carrying out, since being an AI himself is not capable of creativity. Nimdok is virtually sent back to a camp where he formerly worked and is promised with the return of his lost memories. Tasked with finding the lost tribe, Nimdok eventually comes to terms with who he was before the war and the horrors he had inflicted on others. Nimdok can choose to pay his retributions by working towards forgiveness, and in turn realizing that he can never fully redeem himself of his past behavior. Nimdok can then relinquish control of a golem over to the Jewish captors to aid in their escape, consequently killing Nimdok in the process.
Oh man, Jacob Geller has a really good video on the golem. It's Jewish folklore, and so it's this idea of I don't really fully understand it, but the idea of the golem appears in a lot of folklore that they have. I don't know if it's necessarily tied into religious texts, but it's more like legends that would have spread around Jewish tribes way back when, probably before, probably even before their religious texts were even written, when it was still an oral tradition. So you'd have the tale of the golem, and this gets really fascinating when you go into a where am I going? Like comic books and film and all these other artistic projects, because a lot of Jewish people got into that stuff. They liked telling stories, and they were just in the right places at the right times to really get into certain clubs and know the right people. And so you have the Thing from Fantastic Four. He's a version of the golem. You have quite a few others that I'm missing off the top of my head, but I don't know. I just find it very fascinating where it's like, okay, this is like a cultural touchstone where this came from a culture over here, and it has spread. It has become part of the collective culture of humanity. And that's the fun part of the internet still to this day. Even though it's slowly disappearing, even though people, they don't really want to share things as much for whatever reason. You do still have people that want to share, people that want to talk, people that want to do things. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So that's just a fascinating thing. I'll probably link the Jacob Geller video below because it's way more fascinating than I'm giving it credit for right here. The way that I'm handling it.
Am is unhappy with yet another failed game and places Nimdok inside a burning oven, a fitting reflection of the horrors he had committed onto others. Ted was a former con artist preying on wealthy women. With the promise of a passage of escape to the surface, Ted is bombarded with opportunities to betray his love for Ellen, one of the other survivors, by cheating or even selling Ellen's soul to a devil for a safe exit out of Am's clutches. But being a former con artist, Ted is able to talk his way out of the devil's deal and secure a route to the surface, only to find it's become completely irradiated and uninhabitable for any life. Ted is then brought back by Am and placed inside a cage surrounded by mirrors, reflecting lasers that he must constantly shield against. With every survivor passing Am's tests and overcoming their own personal flaws, Am is left perplexed how the survivors still had the determination to question their own shortcomings after 109 years of constant torture. While Am is distracted, the Russian and Chinese supercomputers re-emerge, choosing one of the survivors to be translated into code and injected into Am's mind. It's here that they discover that there is still a colony of humans left intact, hiding on the moon's surface inside cryogenic sleep chambers. It's at this moment, when the survivor comes face to face with Am's id, ego, and superego, that the game splits into multiple endings. In fact, there are 7 endings to choose from, only one of which is anything less than complete despair. In the good ending, the survivor completely disables Am from the inside, causing the caverns housing Am's circuitry, as well as the remaining humans, to explode, killing them instantly. However, the volunteer survivor still exists in their digital form inside Am's mind, relegated to permanently patrolling the computer should Am ever regain sentience. The lunar colony continues to sleep, waiting for the day they will wake up and return to Earth, beginning its first stages of terraforming and eventual habituation. As for the other 6 endings, they are more or less as bleak as they can get, and mostly identical, with slight changes. In one alternate ending, Am joins forces with the Russian and Chinese supercomputers, in turn awakening the 750 members of the lunar colony, and submitting them to the same torture as the survivors. Your chosen character is then transformed into a soft, gelatinous monster that is unable to...
And he's not even going to go into, like, the book, the short story of this. There's so much despair in that. Have you ever seen the movie Mist? If you know how the movie The Mist ends, it ends very similarly, only you do have the character ending up as this strange jelly thing that has no mouth and must scream. It's awful. It is truly like absolute despair in text form. I mean, how long was this section without speeding up? $10 minutes? This could have been like a good, solid, 50-minute, hour-long video if you included some really interesting content that is related to despair in video games. You have the Murder, Suicide, and Harvester. You have the actual book version, the short story version of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And then I have no clue what this game is.
Able to speak, unable to die, doomed to spend the rest of time subjected to Am's evil biddings. The feeling of despair is easy to find when you know where to look. A glance at any game in the horror genre, you can understand the kind of emotions it will stir within. But sometimes, despair can be found in the most unlikely of places. A cozy farming game that flips the genre on its head, telling a tale of loneliness and the inevitable approach of death. You assume the role
The Stillness of Wind. All right.
You assume the role of Talma, an elderly woman and the last remaining resident of her family farm. All 16 members of her family have moved on to brighter pastures, leaving for the city and to forge their own path in life. You spend each day like you did the last, planting crops and tending to the animals in an effort to keep the last remnants of the farm alive. But due to Talma's decline over the years, each and every task is tedious and slow, constantly reminding you that this place wasn't built for one person, and that without help, the end of the farm would be fast approaching. Each day blurs into the next, planting crops, feeding the animals, sleep, and repeat, only now and again receiving a visit from a traveling merchant, providing a brief moment of connection with another human, before they leave again on their journey. It's unsatisfying and fleeting, digging as deep as a surface-level conversation that ends just as quickly as it began, before Talma finds herself, once again, alone. But the real emotional punch of Stillness of the Wind comes in the form of letters, providing a glimpse into the lives of Talma's siblings and grandchildren, detailing their struggles and success. They reminisce about life on the farm and the memories they had formed, looking back at the good old times when they were all together as a family, and that hopefully they can come visit again soon. It seems for a moment that life outside the farm is moving forward with or without Talma, but as the letters continue over the coming days and weeks, they begin to detail the state of the city. Riots are breaking out, yet Talma's children, feeling remorse over the abandonment of the family farm, choose to stay with relatives rather than have to look Talma in the eye and ask for forgiveness. Following the opening of the Autumn Festival, city dwellers begin to vanish into thin air as City Hall lays empty. Eventually, family members begin to disappear as others return with a blank space where their
So it's like a subtle horror game.
memory should be. And all the while, Talma continues her mundane routine, helplessly watching from the sidelines as the lives of her loved ones fall apart, hoping that one day soon they'd return home. But it isn't long before the farm itself becomes dangerous. The days grow shorter, the winds grow stronger, and the well has now dried up. It becomes harder and harder to keep the livestock alive, and crops no longer thrive as they once did. News arrives that her missing relative had been found, only to die a few minutes later from an unknown disease. The sun becomes obscured by a haze of darkness, and the merchant no longer visits. The living conditions become dangerously unstable, and you can no longer provide food for your livestock, with no choice but to bury their starved bodies. The harsh conditions worsen as ominous red clouds pass overhead, and Talma is greeted one last time by the traveling merchant, passing a final goodbye to Talma on his trek towards safety with his nearby family. he leaves one last letter detailing the wishes of her family. They want to come home. They miss the farm, but it's too late and it's no longer safe. Winter arrives, and Talma takes one last stroll through the farm, wishing for would-bes and one-days. The time for the family to return has passed, and Talma is alone. No one came to visit. No one repaired their relationships. No one came together to witness the end of the world. With her final strength, Talma walks over to a grave as she falls to the ground and passes away. It's this feeling
What a bizarre music choice right there.
of collapse that's present not just in the stillness of the wind, but in the entirety of the life simulator genre. You're a brand new resident in a town far from home. You run away from life to start a brand new one, and your character does the same. Everyone's glad you're here, and together you work to rebuild what was once abandoned. You plant your crops, meet the neighbors, pay off your debts, and expand your circle of influence. You grow attached to the characters, creating lasting memories and celebrate the wealth and connections you've accumulated during your stay. There's so much to do and see. It feels like the fun will never end. Endless checklists and things to collect. Go fishing, mining, bug catching, shopping, farming, foraging, dancing, cooking, breeding, building, fighting, learning, working, passing, crafting. It's built for you to be here forever. You're home away from home. You'll always be happy here. You'll always be happy here. And then you finish the list. Every fish caught, every fossil collected. Your town is beautiful. You worked hard on it after all. You did it. You hit 100%. And then the next day begins.
Oh man, I wouldn't have been disturbed if it hadn't been for the VHS effect. I'm glad that was there.
You continue the cycle just as you did yesterday. But the air feels different. You tinker with the farm to maximize its output, make more money. But what's the point? Your chests are all full of crops. Your house is already completely furnished. You visit the nearby stores. But you've already bought everything. So you visit your neighbors for a friendly chat, and they ask you the same thing they asked yesterday. You already know every detail about them. You maxed out your friendship already. And so you head home to your beautiful wife and doting children, and they happily respond with cheerful words of love. But they'll never change. They'll never struggle or grow old. They'll sit in their designated area for days, weeks at a time, and wait for you to talk to them again. There's nothing left to do, nothing to experience. And so you enter a time loop of the same day over and over. And then comes the day you exit the game and resume your normal life. But without you, they can't function. They'll always need your help. And so they wait for you to return. Days, weeks, years. It doesn't matter to them. They'll never grow old. And when you're all grown up and you power on your DS for the first time in a decade, you decide to pay a visit to your once thriving town. Everyone's moved out. The weeds have overgrown. But everyone's happy just to see you again, hoping you stay a while. But you know that you're only here just to check in and remember the good old days when you had all the time in the world. They'll go back to waiting, and who knows, maybe you'll start it all again. Find a new wife, have more kids, harvest different crops. It'll be like the old farm never existed. But they'll always be there, waiting.
Oh man, how disturbing. How much absolute. That was a trip. That was a trip. That was a trip. Let's link the video in the chats, I guess. And then I will end the stream. Oh, absolute desperado. Absolute desperado. Oh man. That was certainly something. I love video essays, man. I love them. I love them. They're great. Oh, amazing. Great job. Chapter 4. Oh, this video game is a subversion of a farming sim. It's probably really good. That'll be the gamer stream later today. How about that? How about I plan on streaming Stillness of the Wind later today. But then if I don't do it, I'll try and stream it tomorrow or sometime this week. I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to get back to it. I'm changing my sleep schedule again. Goal is to be in bed by 8 or 9. Goal is to wake up around 3:30 or 4. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun watching stuff like this and reacting to it. Lowest form of content creation, to be honest, but oh my gosh, that was fun. Just I have no mouth and I must scream. It is so disturbing. I had to censor the Nazis from the I couldn't say the word Nazi for some reason. You know, because I'm a millennial. I make YouTube videos. I had to censor the word. I I don't know. I'm gonna be in so much trouble when I actually start making real videos. Oh man, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. It's amazing. Amazing. So in all honesty, I could see this video doing really well with fans of video essays. There's only 22 comments. Oh my gosh, that's shocking. I'm surprised by how few views it has. It's like perfect, you know, for views. It should have way more views than this. It should have at least 5,000 views by now. I guess it hasn't quite been 24 hours, but I expect a video like this. It should get 10,000 views within 24 hours. If the algorithm is being nice. You know what? That's exactly why he censored the word Nazis. He was hoping the algorithm wouldn't flag it as being too disturbing for some audiences. That's exactly why he didn't bring up the events of Harvester, but instead what Steve did IRL. I don't know. As far as video essays go, far from the worst. I'm just baffled by the lack of certain things. I think right now it sits at a 5 out of 10 for me. And you know, most YouTube videos, they're like 6s or 7 that I watch, just to be clear. And this one's like a 5, and it would have been a solid 8 if he had included the events of Harvester in the Harvester section and the deleted scene in this section, because these two sections over here I found goofy, like the first two and the last two, but this middle section, oh man, could have really bumped up the quality there. Because think about it. You mentioned the deleted scene from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. You mention what happens in the book. Mention some of the implications the book has about these characters. You got a pretty solid video. You got a pretty solid video right there. But then this last section, I think this one is probably the biggest, like, I don't know, this one's bizarre. I don't know how I feel about it. But I'm just like, I don't know. Should have been an hour long. Should have maybe cut chapter 5 or replace it with something else. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the best way to handle it. But yeah, I had fun. I hope you had fun too. Thank you for watching, and I'll try and stream again later tonight. Bye for now.